Radiant Sunday, Worldwide World. Yep, the WHIRL, wide world, as we continue to whirl, swirl, and twirl into a divinely created, organic reset. If you are awakened, if you are aware, if you are in the know of knowing that you know that you know that the matrix has fallen, that the world is becoming right side up again, then you are not being distracted. You are not being hoodwinked or bamboozled into thinking that the world is going to hell in a handbasket. The matrix is. However, those who are in the field of divine consciousness, we are rising. Let me not get ahead of myself. My name is Letitia Lovely, and you are tuned in to Lovely Life TV. And what is that about, you may ask? What does that mean? It simply means to live a lovely life. In by others in order to control the masses, it does not take away from the holiness, WHOLE, the wholeness of those words, right? So the scripture that came to me was Matthew 18:3, the scripture that the divine said very clearly. I'm going to repeat it in the King James Version, and then I'm going to break it down correctly in the Letitia Lovely version. Ashe? Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. This dropped in at a time when there was so much confusion in the air of all of the distractions and the attempts to detour or throw off track the inevitable organic reset and golden age that we are coming into, all of these manners of mayhem. As all of this was swirling around, the message came in. Except you become like a child, you can't enter the kingdom. And the kingdom is where we're going to have to be to survive. Only those who enter the kingdom are going to be able to survive and thrive and come alive in this new season. Now, I've always loved when I was a deep studier of the Holy Scriptures, I always loved going back to the original tongue because one is able to hear directly from the divine what was meant, as opposed to taking a person's word for it who decided to use their own all mind to tell what the divine was saying. I'm saying all of this, I'm setting this up because entering the kingdom properly is what will save us. Where it says work out your own salvation, that is the working out of it. Becoming as a child to enter the kingdom, to be able to navigate what is coming our way. So very quickly, unless I'm going to do this in Letitia Lovely speak now. So unless you change direction and transform yourself into a new state of being by returning to your childlike self, your childlike attributes, you can't enter the kingdom. And if you don't enter that kingdom that is within you, perfect time to do it while we're in Cancer, while we're going within, while we're being with the planetary assistance of Mercury, able to deep dive within ourselves. Unless we do that, we won't be able to enter the kingdom. Now, here is where I'm going to expose a lie. And this is the point where we become as the divine and work out our soul salvation and not perish for the lack of knowledge. One of the things that churches used to do where I grew up is they would call any question about what a teacher or preacher was saying or about how an interpretation was coming across, they would call that ungodly. They would call that sinful. One is not to question God, is what the rhetoric would be. However, one is to question man, and it is man who gave us the King James Version. It tells you who did, they tell you what version it is. It's not saying that it is the divine version. We're not reading Bible, the divine version. No, we're reading the King James Version, the New Revised Version, the all of these versions of a truth. And this is a big one right here. This is a mistake that has enslaved humanity. It's like what I'm getting ready to talk about right here. And I'm going to try to keep this short, but it might go long. So, except you become as a little child. Now, here is where the psyop came in. Little children in Greek is the definition of that word in Greek is the model of humility, simplicity, and trust. And I say two out of three of those words are true. And one is the religion. The word religion, of course, means to bind. One is your bondage, and that word is humility. And we have gone back and forth. Most people who know, they don't use that word humility. They don't call themselves humble. It is not a good thing to be humble, even though that's what we were taught. Be humble. Shout out to my nephew, but he had no idea when he said, sit down and be humble, that that was the last thing that he was being. He used the definition that we all grew up with, inverting a trap, inverting a chain, and making it appear as something we want to aspire to. Let's break this down real quick. And I'm just going to pull out the energy that one is speaking over themselves when they call themselves humble, and something that one is speaking over another person when they define them in that way. They're saying they are abased, diffident, docile. Yeah, yeah. Who's humble in here? Lowly, mortified, an act of mortification, non resistant, obedient, obsequiousness. Now, check this out in dictionary.com, which I think pulls heavily off of the Merriam Webster, whoever them folk are. It literally means the slavish or fawning obedience or excessive eagerness to please. To be humble literally means to have the mind of a slave. That word slavish is literally to be servile, to have the attitude of I'm just going to be obedient. I'm just going to be non-resistant. I'm going to be passive about what one is doing to me. I'm going to be resigned to my fate. I'm going to abase myself. Oh, it wasn't me, it was God. How times did we hear that in church? Oh, God gets the glory. Self-abasement, self-abnegation, sheepishness. Y'all, you can walk into a room and it don't make no difference. You can speak and don't nobody hear you. You're unobtrusive. You're unimportant. Now, you can sit down and be humble if you want to. But I am going to follow the word of Yeshua and the original true meaning of that scripture, Matthew 18:3. And I'm going to become like a child so I can enter the kingdom. Let's go and look at the definition of the Lutetia Lovely version with the help of ChatGPT of what it means to be childlike. It often gets confused with childish behavior, implying immaturity or poor self control, but that is not what Yeshua was explaining to the disciples. What Yeshua, in my interpretation, was offering was to have a healthy, open, and life enhancing view of oneself, of one's world, and of the divine. Let's quickly go through these because you get it. And on your own, you can take a deeper dive into everything being said here. Being childlike, to be curious, a desire to explore, ask questions, learn new things, to have a sense of wonder, to be amazed by everyday experiences, and appreciate the beauty of simple, Simple things, a firefly, a beautiful bee, dragonflies going over, a marvelous sunshine, sunset, rainbow, a beautiful flower, the sound of a child's laughter, to live in that energy of playfulness, enjoying games, humor, creativity, and lighthearted moments. Becoming childlike means to employ and engage often and always in one's imagination, to think creatively and envision new possibilities, to be authentic, express your genuine emotions, and be true to self. Baby, a child ain't gonna, but a child will tell you the truth. Baby, a child will tell it, right? A child will tell you exactly how they feel. To find happiness in simple pleasures, to let that joy flood our souls, as the old song says. To believe things can and will improve, and to approach every situation with the hope, and even more now in this age of Aquarius, with the knowing of where we're going. And we are whirling, swirling, and twirling into a divine new age and a divine organic reset. Resilience, recovering from setbacks and returning to play or exploration after a disappointment. Baby, let it go. Let it come to pass, and then go right back to playing and exploring and being brave and being bold and being confident that that thing that we desire will happen. It didn't happen the first time, didn't happen the second time. I failed, I messed up, whatever. Be resilient and do it again. Check out last week's video if you didn't. I talk more about that there. Forgiveness. This one is huge. Letting go not only of minor grievances, but of the major ones too. And most importantly, forgiving ourselves. That's that childlike energy. They have short memories. Children can have short memories about things that don't matter. Being open and willing to consider new ideas, experiences, and perspectives. To trust, to give the divine, first of all, ourselves, secondly, and others the benefit of the doubt, while still learning and practicing healthy boundaries. Trusting the divine implicitly, trusting one's self wholeheartedly. That's the inner self, that's the divinity within me. That's the divinity within me, trusting that intuition, trusting that gut brain. Bringing enthusiasm and excitement to activities, being present, and remembering that the present is a gift, being deeply engaged in the current moment rather than dwelling on the past or the future. Y'all know when we were playing, baby, as kids, there wasn't anything more important than the game that we were engaged in right then. We didn't think about what we were having for dinner. We weren't worrying about what was happening at school the next day. We didn't have our mind on what happened 2 weeks ago. We're engaged in that moment. That's returning to the childlike essence so that we can enter the kingdom. Experimenting without excessive fear of making mistakes, that creative juice. Becoming creative and not being afraid to try things because of fear of making a mistake, fear of failure. The greatest achievement one can ever make is on the other side of that fear. Speaking candidly and sincerely, that's going back to authenticity, being honest to yourself and to others, while showing a spontaneous compassion or empathy when someone else is hurt or upset or experiencing something that you may not be able to overstand, that you may not have dealt with directly, but you can empathize, you can imagine what that must be like for them and show empathy. Be adaptable, learn new skills, adjust, and change quickly. That's what season we're in. Baby, you're going to have to go with the flow. If you don't let go, you will get dragged. That was another message for me recently. Let go or get dragged. Don't lose or regain. Remember your sense of adventure, your capacity for delight, and the intrinsic motivation where we begin to live and do things just because we enjoy them, because they are meaningful, and not just about getting the bag. Unless one becomes as a child, one cannot enter the kingdom. What is the kingdom? The kingdom is the creation, the world one creates with their own mouth. That's what the kingdom is. The kingdom is whatever one is thinking within their heart that then comes out of their mouth, that then turns into the actions that they bring about to create the life that they are living. And unless one becomes as a child with all of those attributes that I just stated, one cannot enter the kingdom. One cannot shut out the distractions of the world and the lies and the psyops and the mind control, brainwashing, unless you become as a child and enter the kingdom where you know what you know in spite of anything else you might hear. You're not going to make it to the other side. You're going to get tripped up by the lie. You're going to get distracted. You're going to let fear come in. You're going to let doubt abide. But when we become as children, when we remember and forgive and love on and hug our inner child and remember the love of ourselves as children, how we loved as children before life taught us to feel otherwise, before life brought in fear and disappointment and bad experiences and all of that, that pure love, that lovely life. Unless we become as a child, we can't enter the kingdom and have that lovely life. I invite us all to be love today and every day. I invite us all to go within, to sit with that inner child. Go back to those early memories. Go back as far as we can and pull out the pleasant memories. And yes, even revisit those memories that are still calling for healing, still calling for forgiveness, still calling for transmutation and cleansing. Sit within yourself and reconnect with your own divinity. I invite us all to do that as we finish out this beautiful Mercury retrograde in Cancer before stepping into the land of Leo and living like the royalty we are. That's right, living a lovely life. Until next time, shalom, ashe, and namaste.